the numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host Bob Zera. With me in Deadbug Studios is
Coach Nez.
Visit us at zoicsonline.com, zpnetwork.com. We're on Facebook at the Nothing Shocking Podcast community fan page and the Quad Cities Rock and Roll Junkies interest group. We're on Twitter at No Shock Pod. Our sponsors are
Ragged Records, new and used, Davenport, Iowa, and Rock Island, Illinois. Legends Guitar Picks out of Milan, Illinois, and RockstarPicks.rocks, Queens, New York.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Rock Rage Radio, Sundays at noon Central Time. Subscribe, follow us, like us, rate and review the show. Let us know what you think, and we'll read your review on the air. And as always, I want to thank our the band Hong Kong Sleepover. I was going to call them a sponsor, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, they kind of are a sponsor.
Letting us use their music for free.
And they send us free music.
Yeah, they
How
put
cool.
our names on the liner notes.
I'm finally on an album.
I've been in some before, but this was the coolest one for me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, they got a new album out, Butcher and Bolt, and it's phenomenal. Hopefully we'll have them on in a couple of weeks to either do an intro or be guests or help for an interview. But it's a phenomenal album.
Much heavier than Bolshevik Firecrackers.
Which is a phenomenal album in itself.
Yeah.
So it's just a great band, and I hope you're enjoying their music that you hear on the show, and maybe they'll have us put some of this music on.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Our guest this week is
Sami Yaffa.
That was a fun one.
Hanoi Rocks.
Yeah.
Jet Boy. The Compulsions. And
Yeah.
I could go down and say a whole bunch of other things that he's been involved with. But legend. You know, anybody that's been in Hanoi Rocks, legendary musician.
Oh, yeah. So stick around for that. As always, I want to talk about the Chicago Open Air Festival. That is...
You dropped your flyer. It's on the ground over there.
I'm going to go off the top of my head. May 18th, May 19th.
It looks like
Toyota Park. Or no, it's SeatGeek Stadium now.
Yeah.
It used to be Toyota Park where the Chicago Fire play, System of a Down, Tool, The Cult, Ghost, In This Moment, Gojira.
Meshuggah.
Yeah, several. Code Orange. A lot of good up-and-coming bands. You can get your tickets in the liner notes of our episode. There's a link in there. If you go buy your tickets through there, we get a little credit. Not any money. We just get noticed for our advertising. Because I guess they are kind of a sponsor as well. So be sure to check that show out. And before we get to the interview with Sami Yaffa, I saw this movie called Lords of Chaos. Have you heard of this movie?
Yeah, that's
Based
about
on
the
the book.
Norwegian metal.
It is amazing. Now, I say that knowing that metalheads hate it because it's not historically accurate and blah, blah, blah. But it is like, and I'm not kidding, it is like Social Network / like Citizen Kane good in terms of the way they put this movie together.
Is it predominantly about Mayhem, the band Mayhem, or did they go into...
No, it's predominantly about the scene. It's about the way Euronymous and Varg Vikernes, the way they interact and the way, what it is to be a poser and what it is to be the real thing and does it matter, what real life is versus all that stuff. And it's just pretty fascinating. If you're looking for a history of the music and whatnot, I don't think I know Varg hates the movie and did not let them use any music, so obviously none of his music's in the movie.
Well, that's kind of unfair.
But, he did kill somebody and they're making a movie about it, so. But it is, to me, if you watch it as a movie and kind of not what they're trying to accomplish with the story and the themes they're trying to get across, it knocked it out of the park. It is clearly a passion project for everyone involved. I think, was it Rory Culkin plays Euronymous?
Yeah.
Vala Kilmer's kid plays Dead.
Oh, cool.
I do a movie podcast. I see a lot of movies. This is, as of now, the best movie of the year for me, and that includes like Us and some other movies that came out.
Where did you see this movie at?
It is on Amazon, iTunes, all your streaming services. It is
Not quite available on Netflix, huh?
no, not yet. It's still new enough that you have to pay like a rent, it's not even like the $3 Amazon. It's like a $6-7 rental, but it is.
Would I be able to find it on demand on a Dish Network or something like that?
I don't think so yet. It's still like you'd have to rent it.
Okay.
Because I think it's still in select cities and smaller independent art houses and whatnot. But I mean, it will be soon. I'm assuming probably. I don't necessarily know Netflix, but I definitely, when you get a chance to see this movie, it is that good. And I know saying that can be blasphemous. A lot of black metal fans hate it because they didn't get the story right. The story didn't matter. It wasn't about. They weren't trying to tell that story, and no one's going to know for sure anyway. Everybody's story is a little bit different, but it captures just kind of how seriously people take certain things versus other things, and it really does. You know, you have that Rosebud moment at one point, or that part at the end of Social Network where Mark Zuckerberg, just wants to have his friend. It's really a cool movie in that way. So I highly recommend it, and I hope our listeners aren't going to crucify me for saying that.
My excitement, because my love for black metal, well, certain black metal. So I'm really excited now, because there's just so many good black metal bands out there, and then there's some that are not so great. But the ones that are out there are fantastic. So now you got my curiosity.
But it's not so much about the music as much as it's about trying to be hardcore versus, trying to be the real deal versus just trying to be a musician versus just trying to be a person. I don't know. It's more focusing on that part of the whole scene. So I don't know if you get a lot of music per se, actual music from the scene back in the day, but it's just a unique thing. I mean, they talk about Venom a lot. There's a lot of the record store has a lot of Motorhead, Metallica, and I think maybe even trying to think of some other bands that were in there.
Like Celtic Frost or something like that.
More of the mainstream bands. I mean, you see a little Venom here and there. They totally tear apart the Scorpions only because Motley Crue wouldn't let them. There was a scene in the movie where some guy's got a jean jacket on with patches on it, and there was supposed to be a Motley Crue patch where they were, saying, you got to get out of here. You're not a real metalhead or real black metal. And Motley Crue said no. Nikki Sixx said you can't use our band. So they asked the Scorpions. The Scorpions thought it was hilarious, and so the Scorpions are the band they use. But I don't know. I really, really like it in terms of, again, the themes and the storyline. I could see if you're trying to get the story perfect, people bitching and moaning and not liking it. But if you go in it with the right, if you're looking for what they're trying to accomplish, they knock it out of the park for what they're trying to do.
Well, I'm really excited because I'll take it, because it's a genre that's looked over a lot for entertainment value, for the entertainment industry. Excuse me. So I'll take it. I mean, I will, because it's just something that we don't get enough of, or at least I don't.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I've never been a huge black metal person. I mean, Venom, other than them, I mean, I get it. It's cool to an extent, and I haven't listened to a whole lot of it. I mean, kind of begins and ends with Cradle of Filth, I guess. So maybe I don't know black metal at all. But I don't know. I loved the movie, and it was a lot of fun and pretty hard to watch at times. But anyway,
I'm going to be on pins and needles waiting for it to come out on Netflix or an on-demand type moment here. Or Hulu. I'll take it on Hulu.
I'll let you know whenever it's somewhere to. Yeah. But right now, you got to kind of pay to see it, but it's definitely worth it. But anyway, let's get you to our interview with Sami Yaffa.
Yes.
Anything else?
No. Let's get to this thing.
All right. Enjoy.
All right, good night. Hey, Sammy, are you there?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Eric Nesbitt from the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing fantastic. Hey, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Bob Zerl.
Hello.
Okay.
Are you there? Can we hear you?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So, hey, first of all, I want to thank you for all the correspondence that you've emailed me and everything, and being so flexible to get you on the show. So we're really excited to have you. Thank you so much.
No problem, man.
I've been doing some research on you, and I was talking to another artist that's a big fan of yours, and you've been doing some touring this year with Michael Monroe over in Finland. And how long will this touring go on for you guys? What's the duration, and what countries are you hitting? Are you staying over in the Scandinavian countries, or what's this all about?
Yeah, this is mainly just in Finland for now. We did some dates in Norway earlier on, and we got a new record in the can, and just shopping for the label right now. We got about 5 lined up. Have to choose the best one, and we headed to Japan in the summer for Summer Sonic, and then a bunch of festivals around Scandinavia and stuff in the summertime. So staying busy.
Fantastic. I know that was the next question I was going to ask you. Since you've been working with Michael Monroe again in 2011, you released Sensory Overdrive, Horns and Halos in 2013, Blackout States in 2015. We're in 2019 here. It's been a little bit longer of a period since you've released your last album. What's caused maybe the 4-year delay more so than the 2-year?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like years just kind of pass by, man. It's we put the last record out and we toured it for a couple of years, and then we got some management problems, and we got our organization kind of sorted out and rebooted, and we went to the studio, recorded the record almost a year ago. So it's been a while, and it's just kind of been because we're kind of funny band. It's like one dude lives in New York, another one in Toronto. Michael lives in another town here in Finland, and the drummer is in Stockholm. So we have sometimes a little bit we have to really kind of time these things right in order to get things happening. And we ran out of our contract with Universal Records, and now we're just looking for a new one. So that's basically it, just the fucking business, man.
How does the ever-changing musical landscape, the industry, it feels like every year it's changing and drastically almost. And is that something that you have to be aware of while you're creating, or do you just kind of go on your own page and then, let it come out organically?
Yeah, just keep your eye on the management, man.
But, is it hard to keep up with management with the... because it is changing so fast to the point where management can't even really keep up with what's going on. I feel like we're behind the 8 ball in terms of technology because it's constantly, updating.
Yeah, I just hope that they get the streaming, stuff sussed out, because it basically it's just the bottom drop for a lot of musicians. And, about 10 years ago when the streaming started and downloads and all that, and it's just suddenly one aspect of your income just became zero. It's just like you don't make any money out of record sales anymore, so you have to do it different ways nowadays. But it's the record business has always been the record business. It's since early '80s when I started. It's a crooked and weird plastic hallway where where the pimps run free, whatever it was that the Hunter S. Thompson said. You know what I mean? It's true. It's a nasty old business, and you just have to kind of try to stay afloat of it, and try to somehow through the for example unions or whatever you have here in Finland that you have done, and in Europe, to try to fight against the monopolization of everything. Basically, it's what we're going through over here is that we have a long and colorful and good history of, for example, summer festivals, music festivals, and since like late 60s or whatever. And I think it's one of the most festivals in the world. In Finland, it's in the summertime. It's something like over 100 festivals. It's fucking crazy. And it's been gobbled up by these bigger corporations now, so that the corporations own 40 festivals and then corporations own 20 festivals. And if you're not in their team, so, whether it's, record label or TV stations or whatever, then you don't get any exposure. So it's just this constant battle of us against them, which is kind of funny. And that kind of forces you at the same time to diversify your own doings and stuff. So I just started to do a bunch of other stuff to, in order to make a living.
Yeah, I have. Oh, you want to go, Eric?
Well, I just wanted to kind of touch upon, we kind of got away from the releases since 2011 with the Micro Monroe Band. It seems like
I thought it was 14, right?
Were you on the 2011 Sensory Overdrive album?
Yeah, all of them, yeah.
Okay. I guess maybe the question I kind of wanted to ask you, since 2011, with those albums that you've released, the band, it seems like they've been hitting like on all cylinders. I've never, it's been so strong, and it seems like every album seems like it's stronger. Blackout States is my favorite album from this era. I guess maybe the question I'm going to ask you is what has evolved with you and the rest of the band as far as writing and recording goes, to keep on releasing stronger albums as the years go by?
Well, the thing is with Sensory Overdrive, we had Ginger Wildheart in the band for about a year and a half, and he's a very so that match was kind of made in heaven. And then after he left, we got Dragon in the band, who has his own way of doing things and very very kind of signature sound, and we still kept like the way, because it's me and Michael and Steve and Carl who's through this whole thing, and it still has the same kind of style and same kind of vision, if you want to call it. And then Rich Jones came in the band for Blackout States, and he co-wrote the record mostly with Steve Conti, and now we've been as that band since the Sensory Overdrive, since 2013, I think, and now it's the band has solidified much more, and the record that we have in a can now is I would dare say a bit of a masterpiece. I think it's the strongest record yet, so we just keep going and try to make better rock and roll music to our own tastes. We don't really, kowtow to the industry fads and fashions at the time, so it's the music that we love to make, and we've been making for a while, so it's the new record's going to kick some ass.
Excellent.
Well, that's what I love about you and other bands, kind of, that I'm still an album guy, and I'm kind of the minority, but I'm glad that bands are still making albums and not just releasing singles and songs here and there for streaming purposes. But at the same time, I mean, that seems to make the most sense financially. Is that something that you guys ever kick around, or are you still albums to the day you die?
Well, we haven't really even thought of it. It's like we look at this like writing process. We have to write those 18, 20 songs to choose from, and then we have to talk to the marketing people how they do it. It's going to be singles release, but I don't think we ever going to go into the mode of let's just write a song and put it out. We like to kind of like do the albums, put those 10 to 12 songs on the record, and hopefully get it released on vinyl as well. And that's we enjoy doing it like that. And a lot of us, we listen to vinyl a lot and collect it and all this kind of stuff. So it's we keep it like that, old school in a way.
But yeah, it's important to me. There's an order, that you listen to these songs in, and I mean, I'm assuming as an artist, you're thinking about on the album, what songs first, what and it flows, and that's really important to me. And it's hard. It's hard for me to do the playlist thing, and I'm just glad that you're still, that some bands, and I think most still are, they're concentrating on that, even if it's not the most financial, meaningful thing anymore, but it artistically
we
is.
Have a market too. It's a funny thing. Is vinyl is selling, and it's I did the playlist for a long time, and I have the all the iMusic and all this kind of stuff, which is great in its own way. You can find
right
a lot of stuff, and I totally dig it, but But I just went back to like listening to whole albums just a while back, and then bought record players and started hunting down my favorite records again, which I had sold when I was broken. And it's it's much more fun putting on a record, an album, than just jumping from one thing to another. It just kind of makes you kind of like schizophrenic in a way. You know what I mean?
I guess the next question I have is, as far as maturity in writing goes, with your time in Hanoi Rocks to Demolition 23 to Jet Boy, even working with Rob Carlyle and the Compulsions, and now, I guess, how has the evolution of your writing music changed from the early days of Hanoi Rocks all the way up until now?
Well, I personally started writing only at the after Hanoi Rocks at the end of '80s. Because Hanoi Rocks was pretty much dominated by Andy McCoy's writing, and which was, it was a great fucking writer. So nothing wrong with that. And we were young and kids, and somehow Andy was ahead of the ladder in songwriting wise. And it's songwriting is just it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of like waiting for the surprise to come, and then realizing that there's a surprise that you got to use and need to use and need to work on. So I think it's the songwriting is pretty much the same for everybody that I know. I don't really talk to those Max Martins and the professional songwriters who pretty much write with the formula in hand. It's just we go for the rock and roll kind of thing, and for us it's all about the song. It really is. It's a good lyric, good melody, and great fucking riffs and good playing. It's not really brain surgery, writing rock and roll songs, but in a way it is to write a good one.
Do you have to be in a certain mindset to write, or can you just write all the time? Like, do you have to be inspired, or does it come out? Can you hammer it out all the time?
If you have time to pick up a guitar or something, something pops up, some kind of ideas, but then it's up to you whether you're going to follow that idea or not. And I'm kind of a scatterbrain it takes me a while to realize those riffs that comes over and over again, and then those form into songs. But then again, sometimes they just happen in one moment. We just did a reunion tour with the band that me and Andy McCoy were in when we were 16, 17 years old, the band before Hanoi Rocks, and we did the 40th anniversary reunion tour, and we decided to make some new music, and it turned out really, really good. And the song that I wrote with the singer, I put it together in one afternoon. It just happened. It just flew by, and the flow was good, and there it was. So it's never really the same.
Going back to when you were at the beginning of this interview, we were talking about technology, and I asked this to all of our artists about the recording process. A lot of artists still really believe in going into the studio, renting out a studio for 60 days or however long it is to record an album. A lot of artists now are just preferring just doing it in the luxury of their own home. They feel like they can be inspired at home just as well as in the studio. And then the other artists feel like they need to be in that studio to be inspired. Where are you at when it comes to recording? Use of old technology, new technology? What is your thoughts on all that?
No, I basically use the new stuff. It's easy to carry with you, and Steve and Rich pretty much do the same. It's hotel rooms. You have a lot of downtime, so you just set up a little workspace and start strumming along and start working on some songs. And same thing here at my house. I have a room where I can lock the door and get into and to start putting demos on Pro Tools or Logic or whatever it is. And I know that Michael is old school. He's got I think he's got an 8-track and one of those old drum machines. He hasn't really moved much beyond that. He uses Pro Tools, every now and then for a couple of things, but he's most comfortable doing it the way he did it for decades.
Along with that I know that Svart, is that how I say it? Svart Records, is that how I pronounce it? Is that proper.
Yeah.
Okay. It has done some reissuing on vinyl with Michael's albums. I guess maybe post Demolition 23. Will you see any? Do you know? Or are you going to see any more reissues of the older stuff that'll come back out on vinyl again? What?
Yeah, Smart just put out a collection of the all the Hanoi singles. They put out like a 45 box set, which is cool as hell. It's really good. It's just, I think it's just coming out. We just got the advanced copies just maybe a month ago, so I'm not sure about the release date. But beautiful little box set of all the Hanoi Rock singles with the original cover artwork.
Very cool. I know we had Michael on, I think, right when we began the podcast a few years ago. Is that correct, Bob?
Yeah.
We had another co-host that we were doing a three-person interview. I wasn't there for that interview, but he was trying to talk to Michael about Demolition 23 as far as that band. I believe only one album was released. Michael really didn't want to talk about that album per se. I guess maybe the question I have, maybe you can answer, is that band being said, will there ever be anything to ever come back out from that band again, or is that just a one-off thing? Was it just like a one-off type project?
Yeah, that was just a one-off thing. You know, it's the guitar player who was on the record. He's dead now, and you know, we living over here. I don't think there's any kind of idea. It was that time. It just happened, and Little Steven was involved heavily, and it was a beautiful thing. It's one of my favorite records I ever made. And I hope that it sees a light, like a proper re-release one of these days, but I don't, keep my hopes too high. It's we tried a couple of times, but nothing seems to be happening.
And that band kind of is a curiosity to me, along with other, projects that are out there with other artists. You get this really cool one-off album like Demolition 23 did, and other artists do other one-off projects or what have you, and it kind of has like this underground following. It has this interest. What causes it to not to like reignite again with all the underground interest that it does pull from all different areas?
I mean, we've been playing a bunch of those songs in our live set with the Michael Monroe band, so in that way it doesn't really disappear. And the reignition of the band it's literally just me and Michael. It's Jimmy Clark lives in Nashville somewhere, and the guitar player is dead, so we can't really reunite or reignite. It's kind of impossible.
As far as was there any type of unreleased material that Demolition 23 that could be released for like B-sides or anything like that, or is it just you guys released everything that you wrote?
Yeah, it's everything we wrote, and that's it.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Well, the next question I have for you is, you yourself, Andy, and Michael all released biographies, and they obviously have all been released in the Finnish language. What takes so long for those biographies to be released in English versions?
Costs a lot of money to print, and if you're not sure that it's going to sell well, I don't think there's a lot of publishing houses that wants to put them out. That's the fact.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we kind of a cult band still, all around the world. It's like we have a following in Japan and UK and here in Scandinavia, but that's pretty much it here and there. And that's why it's hard for us to come to US to play, because we do well on the coast, but then that's it. And we usually, every time we come to US, we end up losing money. So it's a bit of a drag, but c'est la vie.
Is that, you mentioned being a cult band, and earlier you mentioned Andy being ahead of the curve when his writing, or ahead of the ladder, I think is what you said. And is that frustrating because, you guys, Hanoi Rock specifically was ahead of the curve. They were they came out, and then all these bands copied them and got way more popular. And when you're ahead like that, is it, is there any satisfaction in being the influencer, or is it just frustrating when you see other artists, go off to be stadium level acts around the world?
No, you can't live your life being, jealous or frustrated about things. I live my life day by day and always have. And, do our own thing. It's like I don't think anybody in Andy or Michael or I we have any kind of we saw it happen. I lived in LA when all those bands blew up, and in my book there was only one good band that came out of that stuff, and that was Guns N' Roses. The rest was just like poppycock, and it's not really something to dwell on, and we made a respectable career ourselves, in a way that we really stayed honest to everything that we do, and sometimes luck has got a lot to do with things, and we just got unlucky with stuff. We came out a little bit too early, and then just when we're going up, Razzle died, and and everybody, we were very, very young. We were 21, 22 years old when all that happened with Razzle. So it sent everybody into kind of a spiral, whether they admit it or not. And it's been it was a little bit tough to like gather yourself back together and get back into the game, I guess. And we just keep playing and, have fun and create good rock and roll music. And it's not really, you can't really compare your life path with somebody else's.
Right.
It's just what it is.
Well, you do mention having respectable careers, and at this point in your career, is it almost more satisfying, to be able? I mean, you're totally. I'd imagine you're more in control now than you were back then. You do have that cult following. You do have that, recognizability or whatever the word is. Do you feel more in control of your art, at this point in your career than you did early on, or have you always kind of had control?
Well, it's always been, I always played in bands who does exactly what they want to do, and I've never been one of those label bands or that are being influenced by management or record labels. So we all come from the punk band background, and that's always been that you stay true to yourself and true to your music and true to your vision, and you don't like jump after and start chasing the greenbacks or whatever. We all come, we all grew up on Pistols and Clash and UK subs and members and the Ruts and all this kind of stuff, and it's kind of in our DNA that we do things the way that we want to do it, and then we see if people like it or not.
And I don't know how many more Eric has, but I'm kind of running low.
Yeah, I got one more.
But in terms of, being ahead of the game and doing what you want, have you ever felt like you've written yourself into a sound or a corner where you just want to expand, but you can't because of the success you've had? Or have you always just been, you mentioned always doing what you want, but have you ever felt like you've written yourself into a corner in terms of what people were expecting for you?
No, not really. So we had a fucking calypso songs in Hanoi Rocks, and we always been mixing it up on the last. There's always something different that we do on almost each record. It's Blackout States is maybe the one that has the least of surprising stuff. I mean, we had the Lucinda Williams song on the Gone Baby Gone, the song that me and Ginger and Michael wrote together, and Lucinda Williams sang the backing vocals, and it was kind of country song. And on Horns and Halos, there's fucking crazy as punk. Punk reggae songs, and so it's not really. We really do what we want to do, and on this new record too, it's going to pop up again. So.
Well, no,
just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, we've talked to several people who have felt that frustration where they've gotten so big to a point where they want to do something else, but they can't. And it's really cool and refreshing to hear that from somebody here and there.
Well, I guess, to tie on to what Bob was saying, back in your early day, I guess the confusing thing for me I've always been a huge fan of everything that you've done. But, back in the MTV era, for some reason, MTV felt like on their Headbangers Ball, they would show a Hanoi Rocks video on there. It was like, this is not a metal band. Why would you put a band just because they have long hair on Headbangers Ball? I guess, did you ever feel frustrated in that in that kind of era, the MTV era, that they didn't really know how to classify Hanoi rocks.
Well,
They put you in as metal.
well, the Headbangers Ball program came after Hanoi Rocks broke up.
Yeah.
I mean, Headbangers Ball wasn't until like 87, 88 or something like that, and we broke up at the end of 84.
Right.
And, the record came out in 84. So we were right when MTV was just starting. It was kind of like in its infancy, that in 1984. And we got a lot of airplay at that time, but it was kind of a mismatch of everything back then. It didn't really have their compartmentalized, programs, Headbangers Ball, Yo MTV Raps, and all this kind of stuff. So, but they back then they couldn't really compartmentalize. They couldn't put us into a specific genre. And that was frustrating for the marketing people and for the radio and all this kind of stuff, because everything has to be this genre or that genre. And I always thought personally that that's all bullshit, and there shouldn't be any genres. There should be just music. It was kind of funny. I mean, Headbangers Ball, I think they were showing Poison and stuff like that too. I mean, it's funny. It's like put Metallica and Poison in the same program. It's kind of weird.
Exactly. Well, the last question I have for you is, I'm a huge collector of vinyl and CD and anything I can get my hands on with anything that you've done. That being said, when I was a kid, you used to have the neighborhood record store that used to ride my bicycle to and spend my paper out money on new albums or cassettes or whatever. And I noticed now more than ever that tangibility product as far as sales go. I know we brushed upon you just don't make any money off sales anymore, but it does seem like there's a renaissance in tangible, vinyl, and I guess cassettes and CDs are still being purchased.
Yeah.
That being said, too, as I try to find as many rarities of Hanoi rocks and anything that I possibly can online, the value is so high now for some of the original, printing of your material or whatever. Do you ever feel like there's going to be a comeback in the tangible? Go to your record store and buy new product anymore? Do you think that'll ever be in the popular culture ever again?
I really hope so, and in some places, like in Japan, those huge record stores, they never disappeared, and it's a shame that it went so quick. I remember it was so freaking weird. It was like Tower Records in New York went, and the next day goes to Virgin Records and Megastore, and it was fucking bad, man. It was horrible. It was like just left floating, and then you had St. Mark's, you had all the great secondhand record stores, and then one by one they started dropping out, and it was just like mass destruction of a cultural, phenomenon that had been going on since the birth of friggin' music, since birth of rock and roll especially, and every single city now seems to have their little mom and pop stores, and that's a great thing, and it's a good thing that people and young kids are starting to find the vinyl again. And somebody told me that it's now vinyl is like, I think, half of the tangible, CDs and all that. Vinyl is now half of the sales, and it's a lot of bands, and especially rock and roll bands, and garage bands, they still put out if they put a record out, they put out a vinyl as well, and I wholeheartedly support that. And I like nothing best myself if I have a day off to go and just browse and what kind of old stuff do I like, find, and what kind of new stuff I find. And I got really excited, man. I went a couple of weeks ago. I went to a store here in Helsinki, and I found Captain Sensible's What maxi single. Fucking pissed my pants.
One last question before I let you go. Saw you and Michael on the Amoeba Records, that YouTube, where you guys did, where you pick like 10 albums or whatever that they go around the store. How did you guys get that opportunity to do that with Amoeba?
They just asked us to do it. I mean, I wasn't going to say no to a bunch of free CDs,
Is that how they do it? They just come and contact you and say, hey, you get so much in free music? Is that how they approach it?
Oh, cool. Yeah, that was it. straight trade-off.
That's a great deal. Well, hey, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Nothing Shocking podcast. Is there anything else that you would like to promote or plug before we let you go for the evening?
Just to stay tuned for the new Monroe record. We're trying to get it out in the States as well. It's gonna be a bummer.
Fantastic. Well, this is how it works out. We have about 3 episodes ahead of yours that we need to be released here in the next 3 weeks. So we'll probably have your episode available in about 4 weeks. And when it's all edited and ready to go, I'll send it to you right away, the link to it. And we'll have it on all of our social media. And we'll let you know when it's ready.
Great. And I spread it around on all the Michaels of mine.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, Sammy, thank you so much for your participation. We really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thanks a lot for this.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Take care, man.
All right.
When the black is rough and the sky